this morning, it's like James is saying that there are two kinds of responses when we're under pressure. Number one, to cover, and number two, to covet. But James, he says in verse 5 that there's this kind of response that we so often see. He says, you've lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. But what he's trying to expose to us is that it's just a cover. That these things, they might feel good, but James even says that they're fattening yourselves for the slaughter. In other words, you're putting yourself to a spiritual death. And you're like, Josh, chill. It isn't all that serious. But James, he has no chill. James is direct and to the point. And the truth is, we might not call it covering and coveting. James says that the Lord's coming is near. The judge is standing at the door. James isn't playing around. He's not trying to give us soothing little self-help strategies. He's not trying to give us, as they say, a band-aid for a bullet wound. He's saying this is life and death. And yes, the reality is bad. Yes, there is suffering in this world. Yes, their life is hard, and on our own, we can't fix it. But what do? Because here's what we see too often. When pressures come our way, it almost feels like we're sinking in a deep ocean. We're treading water to try and keep up, and we'll hold on to anything that looks like it could save us. James doesn't say just keep pushing through. No, James's response is pray. Pray. Not as our last resort, but as our first response. Pray when you're suffering. Pray when you're rejoicing. Pray when you're sick. Pray when you've sinned. Pray with people. Pray with faith, because prayer changes things, not because of the power of our prayer, but the power of the one that we are praying to. Do we say, well, I guess there's nothing left to do except for pray? But church, prayer isn't our last resort. It's our first response. Prayer isn't a backup plan. It's our greatest weapon in spiritual battles. That's why we say prayer is our first response, not our last resort. Now you might be thinking, well, hang on, Josh, just pray? I've been doing my journal study, and I remember it was week 2 on a Thursday that James's letter said, hey, don't be the kind of people that say you're gonna help but then do nothing about it. And you're right, James is saying, don't just pray, make sure you're people of action. But in just the same way, he's saying, don't not pray at all. He doesn't say that we aren't people of action, but he does say that if anyone's hurting, if anyone's struggling, if anyone's sin, come to him. Remember, prayer is simply talking to Jesus. And so the habit of his people is so often we turn to prayer in moments of devastation. We turn to prayer in moments of desperation, but James is saying that true prayer, true faith prays from dedication. Prayer isn't our backup plan, it's our greatest weapon in spiritual battles. We're called to pray when we're suffering, pray when we're rejoicing, pray when we're sick, pray when we've sinned, pray with people, pray with faith, because prayer changes things. You might be going, well, I prayed and I still feel sick. I prayed and I still stuffed up. The mystery of the why behind why God does some things here and now and others in eternity. Why God often answers our prayers not in the timing that we expected or in a totally different way than we had asked him for. To that mystery, I still wrestle with. But what we have to know is that when we say that prayer changes things, it's because the truth about prayer is more often than not, prayer is less about moving God's hand and more about moving our hearts. As I'm suffering today, Lord, as I cry out to you for the healing of my friend, as I cry out to you for a breakthrough in this area of my life, that even in the waiting, even in the mystery, even in the questions and the doubts, I discover your perfect peace. I'm reminded of your bigger plan. I'm reminded of how close you are to the brokenhearted. And as I come in and among community, I'm strengthened by their presence.